That's how I met my wife. It wasn't in a coffee shop, or through a friend, or on one of those apps that promise you a soulmate with a swipe. It was in the sterile, beige lobby of the apartment building I managed. She grabbed my arm, her fingers surprisingly strong, her knuckles white. Her eyes, the color of a stormy sea, were locked on the man standing in front of her. A man who radiated a slick, polished confidence that felt all wrong. "Julian," she said, her voice trembling just enough for me to hear it, but not enough for him. "This is Leo, my fiancé." I had never seen this woman before in my life, outside of a few fleeting glimpses in the hallway. I was just on my way to fix a leaky faucet in 3C. I had a wrench in my hand, and suddenly I had a fiancé. I looked from her desperate face to his smug one, and without a single thought, I did the only thing that felt right. I put my arm around her shoulder and pulled her close. "Nice to meet you," I said to him, my voice flat and steady. I left that lobby engaged to a stranger, and it was the single best decision I ever made. Let me back up. My name is Leo. I'm 34 years old, and I'm the superintendent of the Northwood Arms, a slightly tired but decent apartment building in a city that's forgotten what it used to be. For the past 3 years, I hadn't really been living. I was existing, a ghost in the machine. I lived in the basement apartment, a perk of the job. It was quiet. It was dark. It suited me. I kept the building running, the plumbing, the electrical, the heating. I was good with my hands. I could fix anything that was broken, except, it seemed, myself. Most days, I felt like I was watching my own life through a thick plate of glass. The sounds were muffled. The colors were muted. I'd see the tenants come and go, hear the echoes of their laughter or their arguments in the hallways, and I felt nothing. A complete and total disconnect. I was switched off. The switch had been flipped 3 years, 2 months, and 11 days ago. The day my dad died. It wasn't a long, drawn-out illness. It was a heart attack. Sudden. Violent. He was there 1 minute, telling a bad joke over a plate of scrambled eggs, and gone the next. He wasn't just my father. He was my anchor, my best friend, my whole world. He was a carpenter, a man who believed in the integrity of wood and the honesty of a straight line. He taught me how to use my hands, but more than that, he taught me how to see the world. He was a man of quiet principles, and he dispensed them like worn, smooth stones he'd picked up from a riverbed. After Mom left when I was a kid, it was just the two of us. He raised me. He built me. And when he was gone, the foundation of my entire life crumbled into dust. I sold his house, the one he built with his own hands. I couldn't stand the silence in it. I couldn't stand the smell of sawdust that no longer meant he was just in the next room. I took the job at the Northwood Arms because it came with a place to live and required no emotional investment. It was a place to hide, to disappear. I stopped wanting anything. I stopped feeling anything. It was safer that way. One of his principles, the one that always stuck with me, came from a time we were trying to salvage some beautiful old walnut planks that had warped. I was getting frustrated, trying to force a board into place with a clamp. He put his hand on my arm, his grip gentle but firm. "Some things you can't force, Leo," he'd said, his voice calm and low. "You can't force a warped board straight. You just break it. You got to work with it, find its strength, find the way it wants to go. Same with people. You don't break a spirit to make it fit a space you want. You earn its trust. You show it it's safe to unwarp on its own." I didn't know then that I was about to meet the most beautifully warped piece of what I had ever seen. Her name was Clara. She moved into apartment 4B about a month before the lobby incident. I saw her on move-in day, directing the movers with a quiet efficiency. She didn't have much, just boxes of books, a few pieces of simple furniture, and a surprising number of plants. She was beautiful in a way that wasn't loud. It was in the sharp line of her jaw, the determined set of her mouth, and those eyes. Those eyes looked like they were carrying the weight of 1,000 untold stories. She kept to herself. I'd see her coming and going, always with a polite but distant nod. She never smiled. Not a real one, anyway, just a faint, sad curve of her lips that didn't reach her eyes. The building's gossip mill, primarily run by Mrs. Gable in 2A, went into overdrive. They called her the Ice Queen. Never says a word. Looks right through you. Bet she's running from something. I never participated. I just listened. And I watched. And I saw things they didn't. I saw the way she'd leave a bag of birdseed on the sill for the pigeons in the courtyard. I saw her hold the door for a mother struggling with a stroller, waiting patiently for a full minute. I saw her pick up a piece of trash someone else had dropped in the hallway and carry it to the bin. Small things. Quiet things. Things that told a different story than the one the gossips were writing. Then came that Tuesday afternoon. I was heading up to fix Mrs. Gable's faucet, the one she complained about weekly, but that never actually seemed to have a problem, when I saw him. He was standing in the lobby, blocking the entrance to the elevators. He was tall, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and he had the kind of handsome face that immediately made you distrust him. Clara was standing a few feet away, her back pressed against the mailboxes. "Clara, just be reasonable," he was saying, his voice a low, condescending purr. "This little tantrum is over. It's time to come home." "This is my home, Julian," she said. Her voice was steady, but I could see the tremor in her hands. She was clutching her mail like a shield. "Don't be ridiculous. This place is a dump. You don't belong here." He took a step closer. "I've been patient. I've given you your space. But Maya needs you, and you need me." That's when she saw me. Our eyes met for a split second. I saw panic. I saw desperation. I saw a silent plea for an anchor in a raging storm. And then she moved. She crossed the space between us in 3 quick steps, grabbed my arm, and threw the word fiancé into the air like a grenade. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Julian's handsome face twisted into an ugly sneer. He looked me up and down, taking in my worn jeans, my faded work shirt, my tool belt. He dismissed me in an instant. "You're kidding me," he scoffed. "This is your upgrade? A handyman?" I felt Clara flinch beside me, but I tightened my arm around her. I didn't say a word. I just met his gaze. Calm, unmoving. Let it be the one to break. My dad used to say the quietest man in the room is usually the most powerful. Julian stared at me, waiting for me to yell, to posture, to do something he could use. I gave him nothing, just a flat, level stare. After a long, tense moment, he let out a frustrated huff. "Fine," he spat at Clara. "Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when this falls apart. You'll be back. You always come back." He turned and shoved his way out the front door, letting it slam shut behind him. The second the door closed, all the strength seemed to drain out of Clara. Her hand fell away from my arm. She sagged against the wall, her head bowed, and let out a shuddering breath that sounded suspiciously like a sob. I stood there awkwardly, wrench still in my hand. "Are you okay?" I asked. It felt like a stupid question. She shook her head, not looking at me. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice muffled. "I had no right. I panicked." "It's all right," I said. He seemed like a real piece of work. She finally looked up, and her eyes were swimming with unshed tears. "You have no idea. I made a decision. Mrs. Gable's phantom leak could wait." "Come on," I said, gesturing with my head toward the stairs that led to my basement apartment. "Let's get you out of the lobby." She hesitated for a moment, then gave a small, defeated nod. I led her down to my place. It was Spartan but clean. A worn armchair, a small kitchen table, a bed in the corner, and bookshelves filled with my dad's old paperbacks. I made her a cup of tea, my hands moving with the practiced ease of routine. She sat at the small table, wrapping her hands around the warm mug as if it were a lifeline. For a long time, she just sat in silence. I didn't push. I just sat across from her, waiting. Finally, she spoke. "His name is Julian," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "We were together for 5 years." She told me everything. It came out in a torrent, a flood of words held back for too long. Her younger sister, Maya, was 16. She had a rare autoimmune disease. The treatments were constant, exhausting, and astronomically expensive. Their parents had died in a car accident a few years back, leaving Clara as Maya's legal guardian. She was 24 years old and suddenly responsible for a grieving, sick teenager. Julian had been there. He'd swept in, the charming hero. His family was wealthy, and he offered to cover all of Maya's medical expenses. At first, it seemed like a miracle, a lifeline. But the lifeline soon became a leash. Every dollar came with a string attached. He controlled where she went, who she saw, what she did. He isolated her from her friends. He made her feel like she owed him her entire life. He told her family she was fragile, that she couldn't cope without him, and they, seeing the money he was pouring into Maya's care, believed him. He never hit her. His cruelty was quieter, more insidious. It was the constant chipping away at her confidence, her independence, her sense of self. "I tried to leave 12 times," she said, staring in her mug. "But every time, he'd threaten to pull Maya's funding. He'd say he would tell the court I was unstable, that I couldn't provide for her. He'd take her from me, and I couldn't risk that. Maya is my everything." She was protecting her sister, sacrificing her own happiness, her own freedom, to ensure Maya had the care she needed. The world saw an ice queen. Her family saw a difficult, ungrateful woman being cared for by a generous man. They didn't see the cage. "I finally saved up enough to get out," she continued. "I got a second job online, writing articles late at night. I found a doctor who could get Maya into a state-funded program. It's not as good, but it's enough. When I finally had enough for a deposit on this place, I just left. I packed a bag while he was at work, and I ran." But Julian wouldn't let go. He saw her as a possession. His public image was that of a savior, a noble man caring for his tragic girlfriend and her sick sister. Her leaving ruined that narrative. "He keeps showing up," she whispered, "at my work. Here. He thinks if he pushes enough, I'll break. The fiancé thing, it was just a desperate attempt to show him I have someone else, that he can't control me anymore." I looked at this woman, this stranger who the world had so completely misjudged. I saw the exhaustion etched around her eyes, but underneath it, I saw a core of steel, a strength that was breathtaking. She wasn't an ice queen. She was a warrior, and my father's voice echoed in my head. "You don't break a spirit to make it fit. You earn its trust." "Okay," I said. She looked up, confused. "Okay, I'll do it," I said. "I'll be your fiancé." Her eyes widened. "What? No, I couldn't ask you to do that." It was a stupid, impulsive lie. "He's a bully," I said simply, "and I don't like bullies. So, for as long as you need me to be, I'm your fiancé. We'll make it convincing. We'll give him a story he has to believe." A single tear traced a path down her cheek. It was the first crack in her carefully constructed armor I had seen. "Why?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "Why would you do that for me?" I thought for a moment. "Because everyone deserves to have someone in their corner," I said. "And right now, your corner looks a little empty." And so it began. Our strange, counterfeit relationship. The invention phase, I called it. We started meeting in the evenings, after my work was done, and she'd return from the hospital where Maya was having another round of treatments. We'd sit in my quiet basement apartment, or sometimes in hers, surrounded by her jungle of plants, and we would build our lie. It was surprisingly methodical. "We need a backstory," she said one night, a notepad and pen in her hand. She was treating it like a project, a problem to be solved. It was her way of coping. "Where did we meet?" I asked. "Not here. That's too convenient. He'll see through that." "Okay, how about a hardware store?" I suggested. "I was buying plumbing snakes. You were looking at paint swatches for your old apartment." She almost smiled. "That's horribly unromantic." "It's perfect." So we met in a hardware store. Our first date was at a cheap, checkered tablecloth Italian place. I proposed, apparently, in the public park a few blocks away on a rainy Tuesday, which is why there was no ring yet. It was being custom-made. We memorized the details. My favorite color, blue. Her favorite movie, some black and white classic I'd never heard of. My non-existent childhood dog's name, Buster. Her fictional allergy to shellfish. It was absurd. It was awkward. And somewhere in the inventing, the strangest thing happened. We stopped inventing. We'd be trying to figure out what our fake favorite vacation spot was, and suddenly she'd be telling me about a real trip she took with her parents to the coast before they died. Her face would soften, her eyes would lose their guarded look, And for a few minutes, she wasn't just Clara, the woman with a problem. She was just Clara. I found myself telling her about my dad, about his workshop, the smell of cedar and coffee, his terrible jokes. I told her about the gaping hole his absence had left in my life, a thing I had never said out loud to anyone. The words just came. With her, it felt safe. I learned that her passion was botany, that she dreamed of working in a conservatory one day. She learned that I secretly loved old jazz records, a habit I picked up from my dad. Our fake relationship was becoming the most real connection I'd had in 3 years. The glass plate between me and the world was starting to crack. I was starting to feel again, a little bit of hope, a little bit of fear. Then came the moment of seeing. It was late, probably after midnight. I was doing a final walkthrough of the building, checking the locks, when I heard a soft noise coming from the laundry room. I pushed the door open a crack and peered inside. It was Clara, and with her was old Mr. Henderson from 5C. He was a widower, in his 80s, and his hands were gnarled with arthritis. His basket of clean laundry was on the folding table. He was struggling with a fitted sheet, trying to fold it, his fingers clumsy and slow. Clara was standing opposite him, patiently taking one end of the sheet. She didn't say a word. She just helped him. She guided his hands through the motions, folding the sheet into a neat, tidy square. Then she helped him with the rest of his laundry, folding his shirts and his socks, her movements gentle and kind. She thought no one was watching. This wasn't a performance. This wasn't for show. This was her. This was who she was when the world wasn't looking. Quiet, kind, strong. In that small, quiet moment, under the hum of the fluorescent lights, something inside me shifted. Permanently. This wasn't a favor anymore. It wasn't about helping a stranger. I was falling in love with her. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. It was terrifying, and it was wonderful. I backed away from the door before she could see me, my heart pounding in my chest. Things were about to get a lot more complicated. Julian, true to form, did not give up. He started a campaign of subtle harassment. A bouquet of flowers would arrive for Clara at the front desk with a card that read, "I know you'll come to your senses," he'd call her, leaving long, rambling messages that were a mixture of pleading and threats. But the big challenge came in the form of an embossed invitation. Maya's 16th birthday party. Clara's aunt was hosting it at her large, suburban home. The entire family would be there. And, according to a tense phone call Clara had with her aunt, Julian had been invited. In fact, he had helped pay for the party. She said it would be rude not to invite him after all he's done for Maya. Clara told me, her voice tight with frustration. She was pacing my small living room. They still see him as the good guy. They think I'm the one who is being cruel and irrational. So we go, I said. She stopped pacing and looked at me. We? Leo, you don't have to. This is family stuff. It's going to be a nightmare. We're engaged, remember? I said, trying for a reassuring smile. Fiancés go to family birthday parties. It's in the rule book. Besides, you shouldn't have to face him alone. She looked at me, her eyes searching my face. You're sure? I'm sure, I said. And I was. The thought of her walking into that lion's den alone was unbearable. So we went. The party was exactly as awful as we'd expected. It was in a pristine backyard with a manicured lawn and a sparkling pool. Clara's relatives greeted me with a mixture of polite curiosity and thinly veiled suspicion. I could feel them sizing me up, comparing me to the memory of the wealthy, charming Julian. I was quiet. I shook hands firmly. I smiled when it was required. I kept my hand on the small of Clara's back, a small, steadying presence. Maya was a sweet girl with her sister's eyes and a weary wisdom that no 16-year-old should possess. She greeted me with a shy smile and seemed genuinely happy to see her sister looking. If not happy, then at least not alone. Julian arrived late, of course. He made a grand entrance, greeting everyone with hugs and warm smiles, handing Maya a lavishly wrapped gift. He was playing the part of the magnanimous, heartbroken ex-boyfriend to perfection. He greeted me with a tight, false smile and a handshake that was meant to be a power play. I met his grip with the steady strength of a man who works with his hands all day. His smile faltered for a second. The afternoon was a tightrope walk of tension. Julian would tell a story that subtly painted Clara in a bad light. And Aunt would ask me a pointed question about my job. Through it all, Clara was magnificent. She was poised, graceful, and never let them see her sweat. The climax came during the cake. After we all sang "Happy Birthday," Julian tapped a glass with a spoon, calling for everyone's attention. A hush fell over the patio. "I'd just like to propose a toast," he began, his voice smooth as silk. "To Maya, a wonderful young woman who has faced so much with so much courage. We are all so proud of you." He smiled at Maya, then let his gaze drift to Clara. "And also a toast to Clara, for her dedication. We all know she can be impulsive, passionate. She feels things so deeply. It's one of the things I always admired about her. She needs a firm hand, a steadying influence to guide that passion." His eyes flicked to me, a glint of malice in them. The air grew thick. He was putting on a show. He was painting her as unstable, and me as the temporary, inadequate caretaker. He wasn't done. "So, Leo," he said, turning his full attention to me. The whole party was watching. "Tell us all, how did a simple building super land a woman like Clara? What's the real story here? We're all dying to know." It was a public execution. He wanted to humiliate me, to expose our relationship as a sham, to prove that she had downgraded so ridiculously that it could only be an act of irrational spite. Clara's hand found mine under the table. It was ice cold. I felt a flash of hot anger, the urge to stand up, to call him out for the manipulative monster he was. But then I thought of my dad. You can't force a warped board straight. You just break it. Anger wouldn't work here. Anger was what he wanted. It would just prove his point about her passionate nature attracting more drama. So I took a breath, and I stood up, slowly. I didn't take my eyes off Julian. I put my other hand gently on Clara's shoulder. I felt the tension in her muscles. "You're right, Julian," I said, my voice quiet but clear. It carried across the silent patio. "I'm a simple man. My job is simple. I fix things that are broken." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I looked away from him and at Clara, and when I spoke again, I was only speaking to her, even though everyone was listening. But when I looked at Clara, I didn't see something broken. I saw the strongest person I have ever met. I saw a woman who holds her entire world together with nothing but her own two hands and a heart that is bigger than this whole damn house. I turned my gaze to her family, to her aunt, to her cousins. You want to know how I landed her? I used his condescending word. I didn't. There was no grand gesture. I just paid attention. I saw her kindness when no one was looking. I listened when she needed someone to hear her. I learned that love isn't a conquest, Julian. It's not something you win or you buy. I looked back at him, my voice dropping even lower, more intense. My father was a carpenter. He taught me you don't break a spirit to make it fit. You earn its trust. I looked back down at the beautiful, terrified, incredible woman sitting beside me. "And earning hers," I said, my voice thick with a truth so profound it almost buckled my knees, "is the greatest honor of my life." Silence. Absolute, ringing silence. Julian's handsome face was pale. He had no response. My quiet sincerity had completely disarmed his public attack. He looked cruel. He looked small. I saw Clara's aunt look from me to Julian and then to Clara, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a crack in the narrative Julian had so carefully constructed. Clara looked up at me, and her stormy eyes were filled with tears. But these weren't tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of gratitude, of relief, and of something else, something that looked so much like love it made my breath catch in my throat. I sat down, picked up her hand from under the table, and held it. The party ended soon after that. The atmosphere was too charged. Julian left without saying goodbye to anyone. The car ride back to the city was silent. Not an awkward silence, but a heavy one, full of everything that had been said and everything that hadn't. When we got back to the building, I walked her up to her apartment. The pretense was over. We had done it. We had faced the dragon and won. She unlocked her door and turned to me in the hallway. "Thank you, Leo," she said softly. Her voice was raw. "For everything. You don't have to pretend anymore." The words felt like a punch to the gut. Go back to the way things were. Go back to being the ghost in the basement. Go back to the gray, muffled world I lived in before her. I couldn't. I wouldn't. "I haven't been pretending for a long time, Clara," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Maybe it started that way, but it's not pretend for me anymore. This is real for me. I took a step closer, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I don't want to go back to being a ghost in the basement." She searched my face, her own expression a mixture of shock and hope. She started, then stopped. She looked down at her hands, then back up at me. Her eyes were shining. "I don't want you to," she whispered. She took a shaky breath. "I don't want to be alone tonight." It wasn't an invitation to her bed. It was an invitation to her life. It was a plea not to let this feeling, this connection, this fragile, beautiful thing we had built out of a lie, disappear now that its purpose was served. I reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. "You won't be?" I said. She didn't invite me in, and I didn't ask. We just stood there in the quiet hallway for a long moment, and then I went back down to my apartment. But the space between our floors had never felt so small. A few weeks later, the final domino fell. Claire got a call from her aunt, the one from the party. My words had planted a seed of doubt, and she had started asking questions, doing some digging. It turned out Julian wasn't just a monster in his private life. He was a thief. He'd been embezzling from his own family's company for years, the very source of the money he'd been holding over Clara's head. His father discovered the discrepancy. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for Julian. He was disowned, disgraced, and facing legal charges. Clara was vindicated. The truth had come out, not because she screamed it, but because a quiet act of defense had made someone finally willing to listen. Her family called, one by one, apologizing, trying to make amends. She was gracious, but she kept a careful distance. The trust had been broken, and it would take a long time to rebuild. But she was free, truly free. A few months after that, on a crisp autumn afternoon, I took her to the park, the one where I had supposedly proposed. We sat on a bench, watching the leaves fall. I was more nervous than I had been facing down Julian. I pulled a small box out of my pocket. She looked at it, then at me, her eyes wide. "Now, I know we already did this once," I said, my voice unsteady, "but I want to do it for real this time." I opened the box. Inside wasn't a diamond. It was a simple, silver ring, fashioned from the head of an old, ornate skeleton key. A key I'd found in a box of forgotten things in the building's storage room. "It's the original master key to the Northwood Arms," I explained. "From when it was first built. It opens every door in the place." I took her hand. "It's not much, but it represents home. A safe place. And Clara, you're my home. You came into my life and unlocked every door I'd sealed shut. Will you marry me? For real this time?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, unable to speak. "Yes," she finally whispered. "Yes. Of course, yes." I slid the key ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. At 6 months, we were moving her things and all of her plants from 4B down to the basement apartment. It didn't feel like a basement anymore. It felt bright. It felt warm. At 1 year, Maya, whose new treatment program was working wonders, was calling me Uncle Leo and teaching me the proper names of all of Clara's succulents. At 2 years, we stood on a courthouse step with Maya and my dad's old friend as our witnesses, and we made it official. I look back on it now on the man I was. The ghost in the basement. The man who was just fixing pipes and waiting for the days to end. I went into this whole thing thinking I was the protector. The guy in the work boots stepping in to save the damsel in distress. What a fool I was. What a blind, arrogant fool. The truth is, I was the one who was drowning. She needed a fake fiancé to scare off a monster, but I needed a reason to feel again. She needed a shield to stand behind, but I needed someone to see past the walls I had built around my own heart. I thought I was fixing her problem, but she was the one who came down into the quiet, dusty basement of my life, found a main breaker, and flipped on all the lights. She didn't just save herself. She rescued me from a half-life of gray numbness. My father was right about so many things. You don't force things. You can't break a spirit to make it fit. You earn its trust. And in earning hers, I found my own way back. She didn't just let me into her life. She brought me back to mine. And I will spend every day I have left making sure she knows what a gift that was.